Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmidt, and this is episode 45. It's Friday, and we got part 2, picking up where we left off with Karla Brooks. Collaboration is like cocaine. I do not advise cocaine. I do, however, advise collaboration, and Karla is going to unpack for us why. Stay tuned. You're going to love this conversation. We'll be right back. One of my biggest aims in life is to give you more in use value than I take in cash value. And I'm so thankful for all the thoughts and ideas you've shared with me on how I can better do that. One of those ideas that has come up on a few different occasions has been, we love the long form conversational format, but sometimes it takes a while just to get through even one episode. What would it look like to aim for episodes that are 1 hour or less in length without compromising the format? And I thought, great idea. I love the long conversational format too, and I really want those conversations to be as accessible and easy to digest as possible. So I'm absolutely pumped to introduce a new innovation of what not to do. We'll keep the long form conversational format that has been so well received, and we'll divide it into 30 to 45 minute segments that'll make it more easy to digest on your morning commute or working out at the gym or run or hanging out at the house. This is going to be awesome. I'm so pumped to keep giving you such high value conversations, and now more accessible and easier to digest than ever. I'm so proud to be your guys' host and so thankful for all your help innovating and iterating to make this community even better. I love you guys. And with that, let's get to what not to do. So I'd love to, hear from you, as you look back over the course of your career to date, and it's only half over. You got a whole other lifetime ahead of you, which is exciting.
Absolutely.
What's a failure that comes to mind that kind of sticks out above the rest? And tell us the story. What happened? And we can dig into it from there. But, yeah.
Sure. I'll be happy to share. As I mentioned, I started my career as a graphic designer. I did my own thing for a few years, running a graphic design marketing studio out of my home. And I knew that I needed to learn some new skills. So a friend of mine she was working for a Green Bay agency, and she transitioned to working for a Chicago agency. I had worked with her doing freelance work when I was doing my own thing. So anyway, I started working for the same Chicago agency that she was working with out of my home in Green Bay. And the mistake I made is that I should have been on the creative team. Instead, I took a job as an account executive. So I had to encourage our creative team what to do. And I had a number of accounts, 500 different jobs open at one time. And if someone sent me an email, I needed to respond to that in 2 minutes, or they were on the phone looking for an answer. And based on my strengths, one of them is not being a taskmaster. And that's what the job required. Our client was on the West Coast. The creative team started earlier in the day, so I was working 12 hours every day. There wasn't a lunch. My son was young. And I had just an awful, awful headache one day. And I was actually with my son. My husband was working a swing shift at the mill. I was in the McDonald's drive-thru. So needless to say, I wasn't eating right. I put on weight, had an awful, awful headache. It was so bad, I decided to go to the emergency room. And the physician told me my blood pressure was 186 over 113. And he put his finger in my face and said, "Do you want to have a heart attack before you turn 40? I didn't. I didn't have a heart attack, and I didn't want that to happen. But that was really a wake-up call for me. And the lesson I would share is identify your strengths and don't take a job just because it looks good on paper. And I did a good job at that job, but it was killing me. It just wasn't a strength of mine.
That's really powerful. Yeah. So you definitely gave us the takeaway of the don't do this was the don't take a job just because it looks good on paper. Even if you could be good at that job, right?
Right.
Even if you knew it
exactly.
could bolster it, what's the opportunity cost?
Exactly.
And you might not know that unless you actually know really what your strengths are.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. I think a lot of people love, for instance, like, hey, they see sales, hey, there's maybe uncapped commissions, look at how much you can earn, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think someone can definitely learn how to become, great in sales. I don't think it's restricted necessarily to a personality. That said, you could spend, a lot of time in life trying to learn sales, but in like your story, if your strengths are already in the creative realm, and that's what you've been doing, and that's what you enjoy doing, do that. So that's really interesting. So let's take a step backwards quick. I think if you had made every wrong decision, you wouldn't be here today, right? And so even within that story, there's things that came out that you did right? So it'd be great, I think, to celebrate those. So kind of going back to the beginning of the story, like, what did you do right? Like in that situation before the failure happened, what did you do right?
I'll start way back in the beginning. My dad didn't want me to go to school after high school. He was a mill worker, and as he said, wanted me to learn what it's like to work. So he wanted me to work in the mill. I'm grateful that my mom knew that would be a mistake. So they allowed me to get a technical degree in graphic design, which was great. So I got that degree. I started working for advertising agencies, being a creative, having the ability to meet with clients and to go to different events. When I was in school back in the day, I won a scholarship to be part of the Advertising Federation. I don't even know if that still exists anymore. But anyway, at that really young age, I was exposed to business people, and I remember seeing the women, that worked in the agency sales, and they were dressed perfectly. They had perfect hair. I'm sure their nylons didn't run. But anyway, what that did is it forced me to interact with the people that I wanted to be. So I built a lot of relationships from a very young age. So I had my first agency job, which led to the next agency job. And from there, I knew I wanted to run my own department. Back then, they called it an advertising department and not a marketing department. And at the time, I was promoting Dish Network, DirecTV, satellite dishes and such. And my boss at the time, there was the Consumer Electronics Show, and I said, hey, can I go to this show? And he said, well, we've really only ever taken our salespeople, but I guess you can go. So I would say what I can share is ask. My mom always says it doesn't hurt to ask. I grew up like that, so that's where that sense of curiosity comes in, and you just put it out there, because if you don't ask, it's not likely to happen.
Yeah, I love it. You built relationships, you got around the people that you wanted to become like,
exactly.
Think like. I think that's important. I mean, we've all heard the saying, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yes.
Right? And when we realize that, in our working careers and our jobs, that hey, we sometimes are with them, on an hourly basis more than with our own families, right? So picking that's really, really important, And that's cool too, because while you weren't there, you could see yourself.
Exactly.
And it created a more powerful vision for where you wanted to go. And then like you just said, you're not afraid to ask, right?
Right.
We don't have because we don't ask. And I think that's a powerful thing, a powerful principle in life. And maybe it's being the fear of getting rejected. But I don't know about you, but I think the fear of rejection is better than the pain of regret, or the pain of rejection is better than the pain of regret. I'd rather be turned down than to have never tried in the first place, right? Because you can always try and try again, but to have never tried in the first place, I mean, that'd be haunting, right? So I think that's really powerful.
Absolutely.
So yeah, well done. So then, but at some point along the way, maybe the folks that you were looking up to, and those sales executives that were perfectly dressed and the nylons didn't run, and you maybe had it in the back of your mind like, that's what I wanted to, that would be awesome. That would be at the pinnacle of my career if I just have that, or however you might think about it or phrase it. But then that's where you made the wrong decision. So what was that turning point then that led to the failure?
The turning point that led to the failure was I felt that my resume wasn't strong enough. I wanted to get some major brands on my resume. So I knew with the agency it specialized in food service. So I got to work with brands like Subway. I was in China visiting the Great Wall, and right next to the Great Wall was a Subway station that had a display that I created for Subway. So that was pretty cool to work with those brands.
So and that's what you meant earlier when you said, and taking a job that looks good on the resume.
Yeah.
It's because you get the power of those brands and look what I did for so and so, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Correct.
That can be a good impulse, and I think that's good for us. The more that we can, serve companies in that regard and utilize our gifts and abilities and all that kind of stuff in service for others, like that's why we're doing work in the first place. But there's a pitfall there for you where it wasn't necessarily maybe what you ultimately enjoyed. Am I hearing you right?
That's it exactly. That was neat. That was one moment, but the work didn't light me up.
Yeah.
And I know, and I'm in a privileged position. I realize that I get to do work every day that lights me up. My mother-in-law said to me when I was working the agency job that wasn't a fit, she essentially said, Karla, nobody likes their job. So essentially, suck it up. And I remember thinking, I just can't accept that. And I didn't.
Why? Why do I do what I do? Let me tell you. My why is to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving.
Man, oh man, I could get myself in trouble. Let's get in trouble. I hear that so much, and I get the sympathies that are coming through as far as, maybe what they mean is that there are parts of any job that aren't necessarily, they don't light us up.
Right.
And that's fine. I get it, but I think sometimes as it gets taken to an extreme where it's just like, hey, just go find something to do and just stick to it and shut up and just do your job and be there. Well, I think we were created for so much more than that. I think we were created with incredible potential, and it goes back to, I guess, what I call that kind of sweet spot of that trifecta, as far as like, hey, what are you good at? Which could be a lot of things, or you could even become something. You could become good at something. But what are you good at currently? Let's just start there. What do you enjoy? And we understand that the things that we enjoy, they could change, they could shift throughout life. But generally speaking, what do you enjoy? I think a lot of those things don't change, right? The things that we might enjoy, we probably enjoy for a long time. And then what are the opportunities that can fuel that economic engine, right? And where those three things overlap, where we can really, just pour ourselves out and go all in on what we're good at and what we enjoy for the sake of others around us. That's like the biggest contribution and blessing we could give to the world. And I'm convinced, like with your mom just saying, hey, just suck it up and just do the work that doesn't light you up. I don't think the person is going to be that great of an employee or worker or add that much value as in comparison to the person who does the same job but who actually really enjoys doing it. Because I think it kind of feeds each other. The more that you enjoy doing it, the more you care about doing it better. And it can feed that cycle. Or you can start it the other way. It says, you try to be excellent in your job, and you might find that you start to enjoy it more, right? So you can have two different dynamics. But I'm growing increasingly weary of that advice as far as just like, hey, it doesn't really matter what you do, within reason, pick a job, obviously don't be a blockhead about it, but just pick something and just kind of suck it up. And, your main role is just to provide, living for you and your loved ones. And, come on, BS. I think, I would say I wish I would have had like the advice that you're giving earlier in life, right? Before you have the added responsibilities and all kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because that can make that path easier. But just because, just because it even later in life has added responsibilities, and it makes making those courageous choices, those are hard choices, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't make them. Like when you're wanting to pursue work that you're good at, that you enjoy doing, and you can make money, my guess is that your odds are better in life finding that and going all in there. Doesn't mean it's going to be the smoothest ride, but long-term speaking, probably better for everyone across the board, even from a monetary perspective.
Well, if I can add,
Please do.
we're all created for a purpose. And that's our opportunity to figure out what that is and turn that into fulfilling employment. And we need to find purpose in each of our roles. Something so simple as going to the grocery store and the person who's stocking the shelves. The purpose in that role could be moving that can of soup out so it's easier to reach for that mom who could be your wife, has 3 kids with her.
Yeah.
That's purpose in that role. And a couple weeks ago I went to a presentation from a professor at UW-Madison who's actually studying this as people age. And the people that have purpose in their work, in their life, that are connected with friends, they have less heart disease, chronic diseases. They're just healthier overall, and they live longer. So this purpose thing isn't just a nice to have, suck it up. It's real. And from an employer standpoint, it's in an employer's best interest to identify that purpose, help that individual along, because a huge expense for employers these days is the health plan. Or, workers' comp, people get injured on the job. So if they have employees, as you said, 85% of employees are disengaged these days. When people have purpose in what they're doing, they're going to work harder, they're going to be friendlier, they're going to impact those around them, and they're going to make the company more money. So that's sustainable.
Exactly. And that's, it happens on a micro level and a macro level, like within that individual person. They're going to be more fulfilled, which probably is going to yield a greater economic return for them. It might not be overnight, but eventually, right? On a macro level for that company, right? When you have more and more people that are, they're on the bus, they're in the right seat, doing the right thing, they're fulfilled, they enjoy it, they're aligned with the values of the company and the mission that the company is going. Like, people want to build, they want to be a part of something that's greater than themselves, and they want to build that. But again, this kind of goes back to that, that black hole between 5 and 25, that somehow we fell into it, and it's like, this is our only, we just have to do this, or I guess we just have to pick something, which is really the illusion of something being picked for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, our options are so dwindled down. And, it's interesting because I think Simon Sinek talks about it in Start With Why. He references another book, but exactly what you mentioned with what the doctor is studying as far as, hey, we think, is it these, what's the cause of obesity? What's the cause of these health issues? What's the cause of all this kind of stuff?
Yeah,
and tracing it back to generally stress, unhappiness, because people are going, climbing the corporate ladder, climbing up on people's backs just to try to get where they want to go, and the residual pressures at home. And if you have, if both parents are working, and then you have to, let the kids go to daycare, and it's more money, more burdens, and what about schooling, all that kind of stuff. And then the kids are seeing this, unhappy economy of the household and all that.
Exactly. They feel that.
Do I really want that? Do I want that to be my life? And I think that's maybe part of why the younger generation's like, I want to go build something. I want something greater, because I saw mom and dad and they weren't very happy for a long time.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like we fall into that, how just stress and anxiety and all that kind of stuff can just kill. And I think so much of that could be done away with if people, like you said, were aligned, were clear on their purpose, clear on what they wanted in life, and found opportunity that could meet that. And I don't know that there would necessarily be like a particular soulmate of an opportunity, But when you get clear on what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and what your economic opportunities are, it probably narrows it down to a handful of choices. And then yeah, go pick one.
And those opportunities come to you as well, because you're putting that intention out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And intention is real.
Yeah.
So, you might say something, you're putting it out there that you're looking for people to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing is that there's a long line of people who want to sit and talk with you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think you are the 39th person I've sat down with in the past month.
In 4 weeks.
I've got another 40 scheduled out in the next month. Which in the podcast world, it's like sometimes I see people saying like, how do I get guests? Or even like, I mean, think about in the business world, like how do you sit down with folks and just have the meetings? And it's kind of like, I have more than what I know what to do with, which is a good thing. And in some sense, it's affirming to me that I think I'm on to a good thing, a problem, adding real value to people. That's exciting to me, and just to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, doing this.
Yeah.
This is my sweet spot. It's something I enjoy doing. It's something I'm good at doing, and it's something that can fuel an economic engine. And I think by doing this and going all on this, I'm not only am I blessing myself because I enjoy it and I'm good at it. Right? So everyone loves that kind of feedback and whatnot. But blessing to my family and the world around me.
Exactly.
And like, why wouldn't I want just to get better and better and better and do more and more and more? Right. I was up till like 2:30 last night, or this morning technically.
Coloring.
Well, but it's okay. Like, editing the podcast isn't necessarily my favorite thing, but it has nothing to do with editing the podcast. That's just part of that, and it's work that needs to be done, and I'm glad to do it. Why? Because I'm so all in on that greater mission, and that's huge. When people just get clear on like what that why is,
right.
And then they have that big, hairy, audacious goal that they set for themselves, and then you just align your life to go after that. Come on, like you can't help but attract people to you, and that's exactly what you're saying.
That is exactly what I'm saying, because you're so excited about it. You share that with others. You're on that love side. You're not afraid. Well, you might be afraid, but you're staying on that love side. So that's where others want to connect with you, and you're allowing that to happen.
Yeah, it's the light and the heat, right?
It is. And I wanted to add to that why piece as well. So you find out from an individual, okay, what's your why? Then ask them, what are your pebbles? What are the pebbles in your shoes? Why do you think you might not be able to get there? And then that next step is to ask them, all right, wave your magic wand. What does it look like? And again, that's exactly what you're doing here. But it does all start with that why.
Yeah, and maybe you could speak on this too, on the idea of narrative, in certain narratives that we believe about ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
For instance, we've had folks on the show that when they were young were told that they wouldn't be anything in life. A narrative, and for a long time, she wasn't. Until she realized one day that she had just given up on herself. And remember that moment, and now she's Amanda Johnson. She's the executive director for the Howe Resource Community Center here in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Awesome. And another episode where a guy was in high school. He was a freshman, and he was weightlifting, and he had an upperclassman. He was squatting, but he was doing pretty lightweight. He was afraid of being embarrassed by kind of getting crushed underneath the bar and not being able to stand back up. It would be very embarrassing in that setting. Any upperclassman, that all he came over and said was, "Hey, you can do more." And so the upperclassman doubled the weight on the bar, and then helped him. And sure enough, the same amount of reps, but pumped it out. And that was a game changer for him. Right now, he's on his 4th business, his most successful yet. He's ran 6 marathons, etc. And I look at defining moments because someone came along and gave you a different narrative about yourself. You had the same experience when you were young. You're special.
Exactly.
Right? You have a higher calling, right? Maybe the takeaway from Italy, right? Maybe not a nun, but something greater, something higher, right? And it casts a vision of someone and something greater than you ever thought you could be. And that gives life. It makes you stand up straighter, sit up straighter, right?
Exactly.
And it's amazing. It makes you really, in a sense, be who you are. I think so many folks have believed a certain narrative about themselves. maybe they're still believing things that have happened in the past, and they don't know how to rewrite the story.
And that's where I can share with you, it is possible to rewrite that. And as part of our curriculum, we have what's called the Power Post-it. I'm one of those people that I forget stuff, and I'm probably ADHD, but I was never tested, nor do I want to be. I write everything down, and I manage my life through Post-its. And anyway, I started writing, I took my limiting beliefs, that's a term, but that belief got out there. You start with, I feel because. So I'm angry because, and then I name names. And then just keep digging a little deeper. What was it? Because oftentimes when we get triggered in that way, there's something from our childhood when we were little. Someone might have said something stupid to us that we still believe. So we take this, it's a simple process. We take it to this root that, it could be, I'm just going to use a simple example. I feel ugly, or I feel I'm not right. And then, so we write that on the back of a Post-it, and then we literally flip it to the front and say, what is the exact opposite of that? I'm beautiful and I'm perfect. And then I say, put it on your bathroom mirror, put it above your toaster, somewhere where you're going to see it every day. And I started doing that a few years ago, and I had these Post-its all over my house. And if I might have been on a date or something was coming over, or friends, and I quick grab them all, and I threw them in my underwear drawer, to be honest. And then one day, about a year later, I found all of these, and I looked, I'm like, oh, that's not a problem anymore. That's not a problem anymore. That's not a problem. So really taking that limiting belief and flipping it, and kind of like we talked about with that 15-second rule where you just savor that moment, and I would just repeat that positivity, that positive statement, and it did become a new belief for me that really changed my life and has helped take me to the next level. And there's just so much freedom, peace, and fun there too.
Yeah.
How do I do what I do? Well, for me, there's one overarching ultimate principle: to give you more in use value than I take in cash value. It'd be like if I wrote a book and you bought that book for $10, but that book gave you a $1 million idea. I have effectively given you more in use value than I've taken from you in cash value. And that's exactly what I aim to do with what not to do.
Yeah, that kind of work is so important. So important. I'm not sure if this was on or off here, but we were talking about how, I think maybe it was on there, the world is ugly sometimes, right? And,
It is ugly.
And sometimes we get stuck and caught in that ugliness, and we can't untangle ourselves from that. And we need someone else to come along and help us through some basic thought exercises, right? Help us just to really actually uncover what it is we actually believe about ourselves, and realize, oh, that's not so great, is it? And then, or it could be that, I just don't really think I've got much more to offer the world. Hey, look, if you're fogging a mirror, you can do pretty incredible things in the world.
Exactly.
Obviously, hey, maybe you're not going to grow a foot. Maybe you're not going to, do this, that, or the other thing. Sure, there are some limitations there, but I'm more and more persuaded that there are so many things we could possibly do. I think it might be Jim Rohn that said, we're never more than 5 years away from everything we've ever wanted, and just to give people a glimpse, of just how high the ceiling is, or the analogy I like to use is, I think we spend so much of our lives crawling around on the floor, and we conserve, and we're so afraid of falling, but the reality, we can't fall any farther. We're on the floor. The reality is we stand up, get up, right, and look up. And when you do that, you see oh my gosh, there's a world to be conquered. There's a cosmos. There's a universe here. And we start to see that the potential upside is so much greater than the downside. We can't fall any farther. We're already on the ground. And if people would just kind of, in the sense, wake up and realize that, and sometimes it takes someone to come along and say, hey, get up and look up, So I love
Get over your bad self.
Yeah.
But how? Again, how?
Right, exactly.
And that's where that handout comes from.
Absolutely. Love it. Okay, so returning to the story about your failure, how would you maybe counsel younger you to go about doing things differently to have avoided maybe that mistake of taking a job just because you thought it might look good on the resume, not really where your strengths were and what you really enjoyed, something that lit you up? How would you maybe counsel a younger Karla?
How I would counsel my younger self is essentially, again, to look at my strengths and know that I need to be in a creative position. So what I would have done is, taken a look at my resume and said, hey, there's some good work here. So rather than settling and saying, okay, here's an in with an agency that's going to give you that brand experience, national, global brands that you're looking for, I would have continued my job search and found that in a place that I could also be on that creative team.
Yeah.
So I limited myself, very much limited myself, out of fear, thinking that there wasn't any other opportunities.
Yeah, interesting. You kind of gave us three great takeaways of what not to do, and maybe I'll set them up, and I think they kind of build on each other. The first I'm hearing is don't take a job just because it looks good on a resume, right? And then moving from that, don't do work that doesn't light you up. Right. So as you're considering, okay, if I'm not going to just take this job because it looks good on my resume, that means I'm going to be looking for something else. And so the direction there is, hey, don't do work that doesn't light you up. Look for that.
Yes.
And then last but not least, don't settle.
Right.
Don't just, or those commercials in the Super Bowl about the doctor comes in and he's like, oh, I just got reinstated. Well, not officially, that's the thing.
Right.
Who wants average, right? And
Exactly.
when we're looking, it's kind of like, yeah, even when maybe our mindset's been corrected, but then we don't go for the best. We just go for this, I guess, is good enough. It's like, who would want good enough? Do you want your dentist or doctor to be good enough? You're like, do you want the the police officer, or the hostage negotiator just to be good enough, or do you want him to be the best possible once he get out of that situation?
Exactly.
It's kind of like when you just flip. It's like it's kind of goofy in life, how we talk about well, I guess that'll be fine, or that'll be good enough, and it's like, no, don't settle. Go for the best you can.
That reminds me of something my dad always used to say to me. He says, I give you an inch and you take a mile. And to this day, I still don't understand what's so bad about that.
Right. Yeah, you'd flip it around and be like, well, Dad, if you had a mile to give, why don't you give that to me in the first place, right? What do you mean stingy for, Dad? Oh, I love it. That's great. Okay, so a few fun questions here. Throw you through the gauntlet. We're inescapably shaped in life, and I like to think of it as like let's use a lilac bush, right? And the promise, the potential, the beauty, the capacity of that lilac bush in full bloom in spring is wrapped up in a seed, the smallest thing, right? And the environment in which that seed gets planted really determines whether or not that will go from seed to full, beautiful, blossomed bush, right? And if it falls on the blacktop, not going anywhere. You're not going to get your 15 seconds of lovely aroma and sights. If it gets planted in a garden or a backyard, but disproportionate ratios of sun and rain, probably is going to die. If the weed whacker comes and gets it at the lawnmower right before it's big enough to have to mow around, probably going to die, right? And I think human life is so much like that. We for the time that we're born, created, we have so much potential, so much promise, so much capacity wrapped up within us, and yet our environments really determine on how much we actually develop and grow, and we can get stunted depending on where we might fall. But as long as we're fogging a mirror, it's not over, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And so And I think part of the environment is people that come in our lives and impact us. Again, it could be a perfect stranger that just encourages us along the way. It could be someone's books that we've read, but we've never met them, but just so informational. It could be parents, teachers, coaches, mentors, folks that have had more hands-on with us. It could be in a negative way, like we talked about before. Someone said, "Hey, you're never going to be anything," and it really, thrusts you into actually becoming the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. So I'm curious, in your life, Karla, there's probably a lot of folks that come to mind as far as that have been, impactful, that have had an impression on your life. But I'm curious, who maybe stands, kind of out above the rest in such a way that if you took them out of the variable of your life, you just wouldn't be the Karla Brooks that you are today.
Oh, that's an easy question. So my uncle, Father Charlie Brooks,
Okay.
he just passed away. He passed away in October. I remained close with him my entire life, and he's the reason I ride motorcycle. He always had a motorcycle, and all of my cousins, we'd line up, and he'd give us rides. He led the group to Italy where I turned 13, and at the time, Pope John Paul was really a brand new pope, and my uncle led me through this group of angry German nuns, and he's like, "We're going to stand here, ignore them." And I shook hands with the Pope, and that was just absolutely amazing. We were, I got to see Michelangelo's David, and he just exposed me to all of that. And he did what he wanted. He also didn't follow rules, and he encouraged me. I was in forensics when I was in high school, and sometimes I would have speeches that were not popular, and he'd guide me on that. And even in his later years, as he was no longer able to ride motorcycle, and I'd pick him up and bring him to the family functions, I'd always share with him what was going on. And I shared with him about it makes me happy and how there is this spiritual component. And he just looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Karla, this is what you need to do." He said, "It's not going to be easy, but this is what you're meant to do." So
that's awesome.
I'll always remember that. I missed his funeral because I was boarding a flight to India.
Oh, no.
So I know he would have been cool with that, though.
You know the why and you know the how. So what? What is it that we're going after? Well, our big, hairy, audacious goal is to inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving by 2030. That's 100 million people per year for the next 10 years. And my friend, it starts with you. This podcast is for you, it's about you, and I couldn't do it without you.
Wonderful. That's awesome. So fun to hear. Okay. And sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
Not the best advice, but what's the worst advice that you hear floating around these days? So you don't have to necessarily rank it as if this was the worst absolute advice ever. But what's just some really bad advice that you hear floating around these days? It could be maybe bad advice that you were given along the way. Maybe it was bad advice that you gave along the way. Or something, floating around from some internet expert, out there today or something like that. So bad advice.
I'm just going with my gut on this one, and knowing that, we have all of this social media and all of these social media experts. You need to post this many times. You need to do this. You need to, get over 500 contacts on LinkedIn. And so to me, I think the really bad advice for someone just getting out there or getting started is the fact that you have to follow some sort of prescription. Because that's like fake, phony fraud. Put out what's real. Because people can sense when it's a bunch of BS. So just be real and authentic and share stories. And back to that warmth, that love, that's what people gravitate towards. So be a little messy. It's okay to be real and be messy, but just don't follow that prescription. Be who you are, go with your gut, and listen to that inner voice, that knowing to know what's right.
Yeah, that's so important. It's actually kind of funny because I follow like a very similar philosophy. I think there is maybe some years ago I thought about like, what's the best time to post this, and how can I get more followers? And it's just like, it kind of goes back to that people money question, which comes first. And another way to think about it is it's like, is it the quantity, or is it the quality, or is it the things we can measure, or the things we can't? Like which is more important? And both are important, like we already talked about. But I think I couldn't agree with you more as far as saying like, look, like who cares? Like if you have something of value to give to the world, then just give it. And if that's 2 a.m, or if that's 7 a.m, or that's 1:37 p.m, it doesn't matter. Then just give it. Don't worry about optimizing this or the other thing. Just give.
Being an influencer, that's a big buzzword now. What does that mean exactly?
And who cares? And I mean the other thing is like, people don't sometimes realize the responsibility that comes with that kind of thing. Like that kind of platform, right?
Good point.
You need to be careful with what you say when you've got 5 million people following you, right? But again, it's kind of funny because sometimes, like even on LinkedIn, you kind of find like people that will post about talking about how to get more followers. And it's kind of like, I look at that, I'm like, man, that just seems so disgenuine. Like if I was, if I was, if I was a prospect for that person, let's say they were in sales and I was like their ideal client, and I saw that post, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know that I could put my finger on it, but I'd be like, nah, BS.
So what?
Like I would be like, that's probably not the guy I want to work with.
Exactly.
Rather than the guy that's just, sharing value and giving, and making it about others and not so much about himself, So yeah, that's good. The worst advice is you need 500 plus followers on LinkedIn.
There you go. Yes.
And et cetera, right? Okay, so it's rush hour in every major city in the world, everywhere from Wrightstown to Green Bay, because major traffic in Wrightstown.
Global.
But billions of people listening to What Not to Do with Karla Brooks, right? Because that's what you do on your commute, on your way home. And they look up and they see a billboard. And by golly, wouldn't you know it, Karla? It's your billboard. What message do they see? What message do you want the world to see?
Well, I'd like to have 2 billboards.
That's fine with me.
Gave me an inch, I'm going to take a mile. So the first one's going to say, who are you? And then a little bit down the road, it's going to say, what makes you happy? And then perhaps a third one that says, find out at itmakesmehappy.com.
Love it. Why don't you guys do that? Do you guys have billboards like that?
No.
Well, you should. Look at you.
Should.
Come on.
We should.
I've had a brainstorming session over here.
I'd love to do that.
I've seen things like that, like on 41, where it's like you see like these successive billboards, even 29, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys could totally do that. That'd be awesome.
We could co-brand a billboard and put your smiley face on it.
Bam.
Dang.
Well, we don't want to repel people.
Oh, it's a good one.
This is a podcast for a reason, Karla.
You're an artist, Kyle. You're an artist.
Who are you and what makes you happy? I love it. Again, like it's easy to scoff at those questions, right? They're so simple. It's easy to scoff at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I would challenge anyone listening: just go home tonight. When you get home, don't do this in the car, or if you want to just do a thought exercise, but answer those questions for yourself.
It's deep.
I challenge you, Karla, and I challenge you.
It's
Ask
deep.
yourself, who are you, right? And what makes you happy? And then, and you don't have to spend hours doing that, but do it, and then just say, okay, in contrast, what does my life look like? And is there any congruency or overlap with these 2 things? And that'd be a good start. And if there's not, you should come talk to Karla, right?
Can we share this smiley face exercise on your website?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see what people
I'll post
share. Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
Well, we have the picture. We've got the picture up there, but I'll do a closer one of my smiley face exercise, so people can kind of see it. I think that's awesome. Again, simple, right? Easy to want to scoff at, right?
Exactly.
But I think powerful. I think if you just came to it with an open mind and a bit of humility, like just childlike fun, you realize actually this is really cool, And like you said before, when it comes to making changes and realizing, okay, I'm not happy in these areas. It doesn't have to be some kind of overwhelming, total transformation makeover, right? 15 seconds, just start there.
15-second
Right.
rule,
Yeah.
exactly.
Love it. Cool. Okay, so I'm a reader. I love books. So this question is kind of selfish because I'm always looking for good book recommendations. And
Awesome.
my library is expanding faster than I'll ever have time to read, but maybe my kids can go further faster with it than I could. And then I'm curious for you, Karla, what are 3 books that don't have to be your favorites, but 3 books that you think are really, really impactful and that you think people should really, really read sooner than later, meaning they need to bump it up on their priority list. Put down whatever they're reading now and you got to read this book because of how much it'll change their life. What are 3 books that come to mind that fit that kind of?
I know
category?
3 books that significantly impacted me and
Cool.
influenced the curriculums
Yeah.
that we've put together. The first one would be from Dr. Henry Cloud,
Okay.
and that is Changes That Heal. The second one is from Richard Rohr, and that's Immortal Diamond. And then the next one might not be for everyone, but it introduced me to a concept called self-abandonment. That was mind-blowing. And that's by Susan Anderson, and the book is The Journey from Abandonment to Healing. And all of those are available on Amazon and Audible.
Awesome. I will link to those in the show notes,
Awesome.
so folks will have an easy way to access them. And I'll take a look at those myself because, like I said, yeah, if I'm a spendthrift anywhere, it's like, book, I can get in 2 days, book, But it's good. I think it's one of the best investments someone can make is in education. And the cool thing is, it's like there's different ways to consume the content. Like you mentioned, Audible, right, for commutes. We're obviously doing a podcast, right? So it's like a TV and radio in your pocket,
Exactly.
which is phenomenal.
It's amazing.
I'm a big fan of like hard copies of books because I like to just get into it and mark them up and that type of thing. But it's just amazing and really, there aren't any excuses. If someone takes full ownership of their life, I mean, there are so many resources that are out there, and it's really just a matter of laying hold of them and taking them in and then doing something with what you're learning and taking action and applying it. And again, 15 seconds. It can be that simple, right?
It can be. It is. It
Karla,
really
this has
is.
been wonderful. I really enjoyed getting to know you and your story, and yeah, just phenomenal. It's I think through. I maybe said this off air, but I'll say it on. Yeah, it could be something that you said today will have radically altered the course of somebody's life for the better, forever, right? That's awesome. And you might never meet that person. Maybe they'll shoot you out, maybe they won't. And I love it. And so thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for leaning into a failure to help equip others for success. It's so powerful. And as much as it is for my listeners, it's for you too. Like this podcast is about you. It's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much for your time today and just being here. It's awesome. So
I'm absolutely honored, and this was so much fun.
yeah, good.
Thanks so much, Kyle.
Well, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
They can find me either on LinkedIn, Karla Brooks, or online, Karla B at itmakesmehappy.com.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Well, reach out to Karla. You want to get coffee with her? You want to buy her afternoon cocktail, right? Diet Coke and cherry juice. Or explore the curriculum with It Makes Me Happy, right?
Absolutely.
Or do business with her, whatever that looks like. It's a really good opportunity. So, again, thank you, Karla.
Thank you.
Great conversation with Karla. You couldn't see her in person, but she has a smile that just lights up the world. Such a pleasure being with her. Let's recap what you told us not to do. First, don't take a job just because it looks good on your resume. Don't take a job just because it looks good on a resume. Secondly, don't do work that doesn't light you up. Don't do work that doesn't light you up. And last, don't settle. Don't settle. Okay, so I usually unpack each one of these as we go, but I wanted to get out all 3 because they all work hand in hand. If you take a job that looks good on a resume and that doesn't really light you up, the work that's involved in there, guess what? You're settling. You've settled, right? We've talked about before on what not to do, that one of the keys to finding that sweet spot in your life is to ask yourselves and to answer these 3 questions for yourself. What do you enjoy? What are you good at? And what are your economic opportunities? right? When those three things align, bam, it's a sweet spot. But that takes time of self-reflection, takes time of knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses. What are you good at? What are you not good at, right? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy, right? What can actually provide for your needs and help you to build wealth long-term, and what can't, right? But I tell you what, if you said, hey, Kyle, which person would you bet on? Here's, guy A is, slogging away at a job. He's making $150,000 a year, but at a job he hates, and he has to drag himself out of bed, and work in the morning, but he's going to crutch it away. And he's got that long-term aim 30, 40 years from now that he'll be sitting pretty with a nice 401k, retirement plan, all kind of stuff. And he's getting a decent salary now and bennies and whatnot. And so you got person A. Well, person B is, maybe only making $70,000 a year. So not even half as much, but just fires up out of bed in the morning because they love what they're doing, right? They don't have to try to throw themselves into the work. The work calls to them and speaks to them, and they want and they can't wait to pour out themselves in that day's worth of work. They love what they do, and because of that, they're incredibly more productive, they're incredibly more efficient, and the long-term residual effects are better, even though they're hard to quantify, right? Over against, even though the other guy's making twice as much a year, and for 30, 40 years, quantitatively, you'd assume that if everything stayed the same and was linear, that by the time that he retired, he'd have double the wealth, right? Or more than double the wealth. But I would be willing to bet on the second person. Why? Because they're going to have a breakthrough, a compounding effect, and they will be riding a positive feedback loop of long-term residual effects over against the first person who gained the entire world but lost their soul. Like, that's not going to go well for that person at the end, right? Life, we were created with incredible potential. You have to figure out the unique gifts that you have to offer the world and find an outlet for them, right? Find what it is that you enjoy, what you're good at, and find a way to make money doing that. Right? And that's a good start, a good step in the right direction to living a more fulfilled and satisfying life. And Karla summed up for us succinctly here by saying, don't take a job just because it looks good on a resume. Who are you trying to please? No, be who you are. Be the best version of yourself, not somebody else's dream for you. Don't do work that doesn't light you up, right? Don't just, crank away in a cave mine or a factory the rest of your life because you think those are your only options. If that's what you think, then those are your only options, right? Create something better. And it starts with knowing yourself. That's not new wisdom, it's ancient. And last but not least, don't settle. Right. And this isn't, this isn't falling in the trap of perfectionism, but it is saying don't settle. Right. I think more than not, we are too easily pleased. To riff on C.S. Lewis there, we're half-hearted creatures. Our desires aren't strong enough. We desire all the wrong things. We desire, Big Macs and potato chips on a couch, binge watching Game of Thrones, rather than pushing ourselves to become, a 6-time marathon runner or whatever it might be. Like you can kind of understand the dichotomy. Nothing wrong with Big Macs, nothing wrong with chips and couches and Game of Thrones. But I think you get the point, right? Don't settle. Right? Constantly, every choice that you make, is this helping me to become a better version of myself? And press on towards that goal, right? That's what it means to not settle. And that's the greatest gift that you could give to the world. Well, I want to thank you for listening. I hope that this episode has been as encouraging to you as it has to me, that you will go and pursue happiness and true happiness, not a lot of the ways in which we kind of throw around happiness today, but real deep happiness, right? And it starts with a deep understanding of who you are and what you have to offer the world, and then going after that with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's awesome. If this has been impactful to you, then please share it with a friend. Give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to. That will help to get these stories out to the world and encourage even more people. And if you know someone you'd love to hear their story, let me know. If you're a business and you want me to help tell your story, let me know. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.